Hi, my name is Heather Wilson, and I am the founder of Kennedy's Angel Gowns. I have the pleasure of speaking to Miss Arion Long this evening. Hi, Arion, and she's the founder of Femly. I'd like to share first a little bit about how Arion and I met. So Arion actually happens to be one of the speakers at our event, but we met at a sisters-in-law's brunch, and she was one of the keynote speakers, and I literally said, I'm going to make my way to speak to this young lady. And I did, and my ball was 2 weeks away, and I said, I need you as my keynote speaker at the ball. And she said yes, and we emailed, we text, and she's more like family now. It was the start of a great friendship, and of course the connection was unfortunately stillbirth, that we both experienced that, but I will say I'm so glad to have a friend like you going through this journey. I hate that we went through that,
Right.
but I'm so glad I can pick up the phone and call you in those weak moments. So
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It really has.
yes. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about, well, first let's start with talking about your angel baby, Sage. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened and how you delivered and how you honor Sage?
Absolutely. So I found out I was pregnant with Sage in December of 2017, and we had a due date in September of 2018. My pregnancy was completely normal. You know, we weren't high risk. We didn't have any issues. And I remember a month prior to losing her, I was actually diagnosed with a UTI, which, you know, is usually really simple for most people. You get your antibiotics and go about your business. However, I later found out that the UTI actually ended up spreading to my kidneys, my heart, liver, lungs, and causing E. coli sepsis. And what I didn't know at the time was that most UTIs are caused by E. coli in everybody, but I ended up with sepsis. And because of that, Sage was stillborn, and I went to delivery with 105 fever, was later put on life support, and had to endure everything that came with that infection, hemorrhaging, and more. So it was crazy. It was a crazy time. In the year after losing Sage, I did a lot of really hard work. To be quite honest, I'm still grieving in my own way, but I took a year to kind of just focus on building myself back up and focusing on my family and all of the people and amazing friends that mattered most to me. And another thing that really kept me going was the fact that I was enough. Like, most people have to find a reason to continue life, but for me, just being myself was enough of a reason. And then almost 1 year later to the date, we had our son, Asa, who is now 3 months old, and we honor Sage in everything that we do. After losing Sage, my feminine care company exploded, but I also included a lot of work in decreasing maternal-fetal mortality. I've worked with Congress on different measures to help, combat the rates of Black women dying in pregnancy and labor. And I just pushed through for my baby. So for me, Sage is always with me. She is always honored, and I'm constantly doing everything that I can to go forward and just carry her memory with me.
Have we ever talked about cuddle cots? Like, were you familiar with a cuddle cot when you had Sage? And did you have a cuddle cot in the room when you had her?
So it's funny, I did have a cuddle cot in the room when I had her, but it wasn't, like, I don't remember a specific time where it was called that, because after I delivered her, I did have a chance to spend time with her. I ended up getting wheeled into the ICU, and I had her in the room with me prior to being intubated. And everything happened so fast, so I don't remember anyone ever calling it that. I don't know if they called it anything. I just know that, they kept her temperature controlled, and they wanted to allow me the opportunity to see her. So I didn't learn about cuddle cots or, the overall movement about them until I became familiar with Kennedy's Angel Gowns and all of the work that you all were doing.
Speaking of a cuddle cot, I know that you were kind of out of it given the circumstances of when you gave birth.
Right.
But what do you think it means to have a cuddle cot for a family? If you could sum that up in your own words, what does that do for a family, and why is it so important to have them?
Having access to a cuddle cot for a family that's recently gone through a loss is, it means the world. Like, it's, the need for it is immense. It's immeasurable. Specifically now, we're doing this interview at a time where the COVID-19 pandemic is making it hard for anybody to grieve. I mean, my family has had to attend 7 virtual funerals via Zoom or Facebook Live in the past 3 weeks alone. And I can't imagine, how hard it is for people who are losing parents, losing children. But, having that cuddle cot for a mom who's had a loss, it's a game changer. You have the opportunity to say goodbye. And often many people don't even get closure, like I have, for the reasons why their child passed away. So just the ability to see them, all their little fingers and toes, or hold them and say goodbye, and compare their nose to dad's or grandma's or whoever, it means the world. It means everything. And that memory, you don't realize how important it is at the time, but that's one of the things that you carry with you as you move forward through life for years to come.
So true. It's so true. And my husband and I, we always go back to that, like, why didn't they have one of these? I wish we could have, just another few minutes with her.
Right.
Because that final goodbye was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Right.
And it just wasn't, it was rushed, and it wasn't enough time. Not that any amount of time would be enough time.
Yeah.
But it would at least give us the chance to say the goodbye that we wanted to.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I didn't come up with life support for days after, and I immediately had to, make a decision as to what to do with her remains. And I wasn't even in my right frame of mind. Like, at the time, I couldn't afford a funeral. Mm-hmm. But looking back, I probably would have liked to have that time and have the ability to make those decisions, but I just couldn't,
Because that's kind of a sense of mothering her too.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that she was laid to rest. And I felt like I lost that too. My case was not nearly as extreme as yours, but I was very sick too. And so I couldn't plan any of the funeral arrangements. My mom and my husband had to. Mine was more high blood pressure and getting my pressure down. Right. But being on that mag, I was so sick. That stuff very strong, but it has a great purpose.
Yeah.
So, one of the things we've been focusing on lately with Kennedy's Angel Gowns is being brave through your grief.
Yeah.
Does anyone ever I know I tell you all the time how you are. You're very inspirational. From the second I met you, I have told you that your name is next to the word inspiration in the dictionary.
Thank you.
But being brave through your grief, what does that mean to you? And has anyone ever told you, Arion, you are so brave to go through what you went through?
The funny thing is, I feel like everyone told me I was brave. And to be quite honest, it was the bane of my existence for months, because I just, usually when someone calls you brave, you feel pride. Like, I just, I've gone through something to accomplish this thing, and I went through it courageous despite the fear. And for me, it's like, yeah, I was brave, but I wasn't given the choice. I just had to pick up the pieces and do something with them. Who wants to be brave in that situation? But for me, the decision to be brave and being brave just embodies the conscious effort and conscious decision to keep going despite how you feel. I came out of heart failure, and I had all of these issues, and I remember Googling, because I didn't even know how bad septic shock was. I remember Googling and realizing that 60% of people die from the very thing that I overcame. And then of the people who survive, many have amputations, they lose limbs, they have permanent organ failure, they need transplants. So I just remember the fear of oh my God, I survived this thing, but what if I can't have children in the future? For a time, I didn't even want to try again. I was just very fearful of the future and scared about what could be. So for me, being brave was just continuing to go despite what had happened and trying to compartmentalize things and kind of focus on the things that I could control, which in reality is really nothing.
Nothing, but look at you. Look where you stand right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Look what you've done. When I think brave too, with you specifically, you're like the startup queen. I mean, every time I look on social media, you're doing a pitch here or a pitch there. And share with the audience, share about the pitch you did right after you delivered Sage.
So I lost Sage. We delivered her May 19th, 2018. I was on life support thereafter and was finally discharged to go home like May 28th. And around June 10th or June 15th of that same year, well, to circle back, when I was pregnant, I was in the building and growth stage of my company. Femly is a high-tech startup. We manufacture organic, chemical-free feminine care. But I was growing it, and we weren't generating the revenue that we wanted because we were just making the decision to manufacture our own products, get them in stores like Target, etc. So I had applied to all of these different Shark Tank-style competitions to raise the funding needed to, make the products, get them out to people, all of that. And I had applied to this one competition in DC for an amazing women-led organization. And I got the notification like 2 days after I was home that I was a finalist for it. But, coming out of the hospital, we had about $587,000 in medical bills. So I was walking funny. My hips were crazy from pregnancy and being in the ICU. And something told me, you got to get up. Like, okay, you have memory loss. Okay, you're not feeling great, but you got to get up and do something. And just being in the house around all of the things that I had purchased for her, It was extremely sad. So I got up. I went to DC with my sister in tow because I knew I couldn't walk that well. I threw on my makeup. I had a PICC line, which I still have the scar from being in the ICU. And I bought a wig and threw it over my neck so that nobody could see the PICC line. Okay. And I pitched my behind off to get my company this funding, and we won it. And that was 10 days off of life support. And that funding was, the seed money that we
Nothing but God. 10 days. 10 days of life support.
And no one knew. So, people were looking at me because just 2 weeks prior, they had seen me super pregnant. And now I'm sitting in front of them. They're like, oh, how's the baby? And I'm like, and that's another thing women go through.
All the time of those questions. We talked about that earlier of being around those people that knew you were pregnant.
Right.
And then the next time you see them, they're like, how's the baby doing? And not knowing what to say. That sudden moment of, am I close enough to share with you what happened? Now I'm uncomfortable. And then when I tell you that my baby died, then you're uncomfortable. It's just, there's no win. And it's something, people don't talk about this topic. It's crazy that so many women walk this path, and it's a silenced topic. No one talks about it. And there's so many different factors we go through.
And it's odd that it's still so silent, because I feel like after I lost Sage, people came out of the woodworks and said, hey, I had a cousin who lost a baby, or I lost a baby, or I had a miscarriage, and it was just like, where the hell were you guys when we were, going through this?
Right. Family members out of my mom would say, yeah, your grandma, she lost a set of twins. And you've never told me that. Not even when I lost Kennedy did you bring that up.
And I feel like maybe in their generation it was even harder. Can you imagine?
Oh, yeah.
We're a little bit more open about things now. I mean, our generation, we even talk about going to therapy, but it was still taboo back then.
You can say that out loud and people don't judge you.
Oh, yeah. My therapist told me and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I dragged my husband to therapy. I didn't even know if we were going to make it after the loss. We grieved differently. No one tells you these things. All I wanted to do was talk about Sage and say her name and look at her pictures. And
that's what it is.
My husband couldn't even hold her when she was born. I held her. There were and I was angry. A few weeks when I got home, I was angry that he didn't hold her. I didn't understand. He didn't understand why I always wanted to talk about her. It was just a mess.
And that's the thing about, a lot of people would say to me, Heather, I didn't know what to say to you.
Yeah.
And all I wanted was to talk about her. I wanted you to refer to her with her name. I wanted you to say Kennedy, because she was my child. She existed.
Yeah.
I wanted you to just sit and listen to me. I didn't need anyone to have the right answers, because guess what? There's no one who had the right answers. There's not one person. So it was that moment of just be there for me, just sit with me, allow me to talk, allow me to vent, allow me to cry. All of those things would have really helped. But, and not that I blame them, it's a situation that no one knows what the right thing to do is.
Right. That's true.
So speaking on these COVID-19 times that we are currently living and trying to survive in, how are you? I know you mentioned earlier that you're still grieving. And I'll say 10 years later, I'm still grieving too. How are you, and your situation's even more different because you just had your rainbow baby. So how are you grieving in a situation where you are forced to be at home with your feelings? You have a child that is keeping you quite busy, but how are you balancing the grief? What are you doing during the COVID-19 to kind of get through your feelings?
To be honest, I am just social distancing and praying that we make it through this. Like, one of the things that nobody talks about is after you go through a trauma like that, just the fear that comes along with any illness thereafter. I personally, like, for instance, my OB told me when COVID first touched down here, she said, I was bringing the baby with me to my postpartum appointments, and she said, I want you to stay in. Don't bring him out, but I want you to stay in because you've been intubated before. And she said, usually that increases your risk of needing to be intubated again. So then my fear came in, like, oh my God, am I part of this, population with underlying
at-risk population?
Everything that I've read says sepsis alters your immune system for long term, but nothing I've read accounts for a younger Black woman getting sepsis. Everything I've read is for older people, which is who usually gets it. So I am just doing everything I can to go through each day, make sure my family is healthy and safe. Lately, I've been trying to stay away from the headlines in the news because they can be very grim and depressing.
Tell me about it.
And I'm just taking care of the things that I can control here at home. And though it's not something that's like in the immediate term, I would like to give our son a sibling in the future. I would like to have a daughter. Like, I remember the grief of finding out that he was a boy, and now he's my everything. But at
We
the
talked
time,
about that. We talked about that.
It was such a shock
that
I was having a boy. Like, you would think that there was no possibility that I would ever create the opposite gender with my reaction. I think I went through depression for like a month while I was pregnant.
That is real.
Back,
Yep. And it's not that Sage is a replacement child, Asa is a replacement child for Sage. And I know Riley's not a replacement child for Kennedy.
Right.
But the 9 months that I went through with Kennedy, the preparing, everything was girl this, girl that.
Right.
It was the shirts, the t-shirts, everything, the tutus. It was planned out in my mind. And I think I would have had that same exact reaction to you if they would have told me that it was. And I even thought about how I was able to use every single one of Kennedy's items for Riley. They were able to be hand-me-downs for her sister.
And that could be triggering in itself, because it also, even if I would have been pregnant with another girl, what they don't tell you is every pregnancy is completely different. So like Sage and I had these little games that I would play with my belly, and she kicked like crazy from the beginning. And Asa was like very chill, sleeping all the time. So like I even mourned the type of pregnancy that I had, and like all of these little things, because that was my first, my first pregnancy. It was just crazy. And I blamed myself. And there's an undercurrent too, because I was talking to a friend about this. I'm fine and I'm comfortable in sharing the fact that I had an abortion years prior to even being pregnant with Sage. So for a while after losing her, there was a tiny part of me for a short time that almost blamed myself. Like, you've terminated a pregnancy, even though it was the best decision for me at the time. You've terminated a pregnancy, so somehow maybe that led to this, or maybe this is your karma for that. Like there's so many undercurrents and like dualities that exist in complexities in pregnancy loss that like people don't talk about.
And you're not the first person to share that, that those same thoughts went through the same thing where they had an abortion and then they got pregnant and that baby passed. I've heard that from multiple women.
Right.
And most recently in the last year, we had 2 families contact us for angel gowns. And they were like, I really need to talk to you on the phone. And when we got them on the phone, they said, listen, I'm medically aborting my child because my baby won't survive. Will you still give me a gown?
Right.
And I just had to remind them that whatever you do and whatever choices you make, this is a non-judgment zone. You did what was right for your
family. And it still comes with grief. It's
still grief.
And we're still here to support you,
Yep. So I'm glad you talked and spoke about that, because a lot of people are afraid to say that. And again, you being brave through your grief is opening doors for other people to talk about situations that they're going through. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And so Why do you think someone should donate money towards a cuddle cot?
I think that somebody should donate money towards a cuddle cot because you are providing a family, a mom, with a life-altering opportunity that they will carry with them until the day they die.
Mhm.
I can't even begin to describe how important a donation to something like this would be. Like this, literally, in my darkest hours, just the feeling of holding her and seeing her little face and seeing now how much she looked like her brother,
I know.
it meant the world. And like every second counts when you have a loss like this. And for people who haven't had the chance to say goodbye to their loved ones, they'll tell you, like, sometimes that's the hardest part of it all, not being able to say goodbye. And
Yeah.
that's why it's especially hard with COVID. You're having to say goodbye over an iPad, if at all.
Mhm.
So this donation would be immeasurable for somebody. And it's definitely something that, you can see the fruits of your labor. That cuddle cot is not just for the one baby.
That's
This
right.
cuddle cot may support a local ecosystem, a local hospital network, a local labor and delivery ward. So like there are countless moms that are gonna unfortunately go through this experience and need this opportunity, and your donation will continue to live on and continue to evolve and revolve.
Thank you so much. Do you have any last words? Anything else you want to share with our audience tonight?
Yes. Just thank you. Like, thank you for launching such an amazing organization. Thank you for being amazing and standing for lost moms like myself. And thank you for providing many the opportunity that so few get. I hope that people will see this and continue to support you guys and donate and share. Even liking on Facebook and just sharing the opportunity and sharing the journey may help a mom in need. I personally sent quite a few moms who've experienced a loss to you guys. So thank you. Just thank you for that, and I hope that you guys all donate.
Thank you. Arion, we love you and we thank you for taking this time out.
Thank you.
And of course, visit Arion at Femly.com for her all natural feminine products.
Yes.
Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.